perception. Now, perception is neurology. The more neurological pathways. Oh, absolutely. You got a lower and a higher consciousness, they call. I say you have what is consciousness? It's perception. Consciousness is awareness, perception. Now, perception is neurology. The more neurological pathways are developed within your own brain, the more controlled you are to see more. That is logical. And that is the purpose of our life. Some do it by making a beautiful chair. Some do it by learning many languages. Some do it through making podcasts possible. Some do it by serving others with coffee and tea. It does not matter. Whatever it takes to expand your own consciousness, to bring it from a lower consciousness, animalistic, to this brain, the human brain consciousness, that is connection. And it's done inside the brain. And now we found, once again, it's no pill, it's no drug, it's you, yourself. By the way, we say, get high on your own supply. And get into this breathing. In the beginning of this podcast, you said, I did this breathing, and it's like DMT. Even we are able, through these pneumatic manipulated exercises, through the breath and pressurizing, and to get into the deepest part of the brain, which also is activated during the REM sleep, the deep sleep. That's the DMT. The DMT, and it's to release trauma. And it's also bloody nice. It's like a drug, and we are able to activate that. But so what I say is we are able to become more than the normal. Superhuman means we are actually born to be great, to feel great. Not in the eyes maybe of others, but once you feel great, you radiate greatness. Yeah. You radiate like love. It's like sanity. And people are positively affected. This is going to change the world. And once again, it's no religion, but it's divine. And that's who we are. And that is only done by setting the mind. But first, make the right conditions. That is the chemistry should be right, and the transportation of the chemistry throughout the body to all the cells, to the DNA should be done. And that's where I am right now, right, with the new study on the DNA. Yeah.
And Evil, Part 6. No masters, no slaves. Taking the initiative. This presentation is designed to tie together the ideas of the past 6 and evil presentations and give you some hope and something to do with all the knowledge and the ideas we've discussed. From The End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. There is a dark conspiracy which has clouded the minds of humanity throughout all ages. This conspiracy is evil incarnate and controls vast mountains of human emotions, work, thought, and speech. It has been responsible for the deaths of hundreds upon hundreds of millions and the slavery of nearly every being who has ever lived. If you can accept a single principle, that you have infinite worth, then this book will give you the vision necessary to see the world as it truly is. To know once and for all that this dark conspiracy is not strong, but weak, that evil is not growing, but dying. Let's think of a new concept. Let's think of a thermometer. On one side is hot, and the other side is cold. The thermometer is just one thing, one container of mercury. So it could also be said that hot and cold are not two separate things, but just two polarities of one thing, heat. There is either heat or there is lack of heat. The word cold just describes the condition where there is no heat. The same concept holds true with light. Darkness and light do not exist separately, apart from each other. They would mean nothing. Darkness only means the absence of light. Same as dry. It's just the condition where there's no water. Good and evil in the universal sense are just a continuum in the same way. The state of morality on earth right now at this given moment could fluctuate if it were graphed on this thermometer. The cumulative aggregate whole of the human race makes significant strides towards improving the family tree or the relationship with nature and each other, and living more in accordance with natural law. The thermometer could potentially change at any moment, likely more slowly over time. It could drop all the way to becoming clear in a state of good. In the modern day, with our new technology, are we experiencing more freedom or less freedom? I've spent some time looking into the idea of metadata collection and mass surveillance. There are quite a few whistleblowers. Many of the lesser known whistleblowers are the ones I became more interested in, who explain in detail the many ways in which our government collects, stores, and uses every bit of data which is our own private information. We've known this for quite some time, and yet Americans have not reacted and put a stop to what we know to be criminal behavior, which is illegal by our own laws. So in this way, technology has really crippled our country. This slide is Jeremy Locke, The End of All Evil. What we consider as real slavery is indeed only one form of slavery. The African slaves in the United States were compelled to work and toil for other people's benefit. Their lives were mostly controlled for the benefit of the master. But they had some very limited freedoms. Some were able to create distinct traditions and maintain families. They did their best to build joy into their lives despite the tyranny wrought upon them. Because they were in control of portions of their lives, were they free? How much freedom does a person deserve? How much freedom can be destroyed before we recognize that it is evil? Slavery is not a concept of totality. Slavery exists whenever the freedom of man is destroyed. Theft and bullying are slavery. In history, African natives, Jews, and many others have experienced lifelong slavery. The ultimate slavery is murder. Slavery stops people from being able to make choices for their own lives. Everything that restricts your mind, your movements, and your speech is evil. Slavery is found in both the partial and complete destruction of freedom. Here's a quote from Frederick Douglass. It's from the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass. I have observed this in my experience of slavery, that whenever my condition was improved, instead of its increasing my contentment, it only increased my desire to be free, and set me to thinking of plans to gain my freedom. I have found that to make a contented slave, it is necessary to make a thoughtless one. It is necessary to darken his moral and mental vision, and, as far as possible, to annihilate the power of reason. He must be able to detect no inconsistencies in slavery. He must be made to feel that slavery is right, and he can be brought to that only when he's ceased to be a man. In Part 5, our discussion about the Tesseract included the short image of the laser hypercube being set on the head of the willing slave, who then becomes shut off on all sides from the interconnectedness of life all around. The life energy, the life flow, the tree of life, the circle of life, the circuit or heartbeat of nature. I thought about the cube with 6 walls, like a dice cube. I came up with 6 walls that the corrupted dark occultist power cult use to keep humans enslaved and programmed in following orders. I have them listed here in a little picture to depict each. In the top left-hand corner, you see the picture of breaking news. And this is the news is shutting down a particular wall. And that wall is inhibiting our ability to gather non-biased information. So what does the news do? It brings you a story, and it tells it to you in a certain way. That picture shows a lot about the way it's being told to you. A very dramatic method. And it's the idea of being non-biased has gone out the window many years ago in the reporting, money-making field of reporting these days. Okay, and then in the top right, you see money. Money consolidates your focus, your life vision. Okay, so that's another wall that's blocking your senses, blocking your whole self. Come down a line here, and on the either side there you see the scrolls of a sacred religion. And this is just symbolizing, any religion you can imagine with their sacred words and their sacred books and their certain symbolism and their certain clothing. All these structures envelope heart-based intelligence. So you have stories that are telling you what's right and wrong rather than trusting each other and our instincts in our own heart. In the center there we have the lights and the crowd. This symbolizes the entertainment, the wall of entertainment. Here's where the imagination of the individual is just completely captured and distracted, rather than that imagination we would use to see what's going on in the bigger picture of the world, or what's being done. In the bottom left-hand corner, you see the hospital beds and the hospital equipment, and this is the structure. This is to symbolize the structure of the modern medical system of health that's being, which is representing universal health, which is trying to replace the individual's ability to self-heal. And that is better done in a community, a local community. Historically, a shaman, medicine person, gathering the wisdom of the local tribe and using that wisdom to heal ourselves and to heal our own community. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the structure of the educational scientist system. Another wall blocking and commanding the individual, the avoidance to analyze facts on one's own, but instead to trust what I call scientism, the headlines that tell you what's been discovered, without encouraging individual exploration and discovery. One difficulty I face in presenting information in the End Evil series is that I do deeply respect the people in our local communities that provide services, such as those that care for children in schools. And we all have memories of exceptional teachers that made a difference in our lives. In the medical profession, I especially have the deepest respect for the nurses and the assistants and the CNAs and the janitors and the people out there on the floors that do the hard work and show the care and respect to the patients, which is probably the most number one important thing that heals people in the hospital. And of course, I also have respect for the scientific breakthroughs and technological advances that have been made. The problem, the issue, is that with every technological or scientific medical idea coming through, they're coming through a funnel or a background, a filter of a vast network of conglomerate corporate control, which is controlled by what I'm calling the dark occult, the cult of death, those who study evil in so much simple way to say it, the control of others, the coercion. And this control is not tailored to the individual. It does not even care about the individual or the future of humanity. It's focused on its own personal gain. And I'm saying the entity which has been formed in terms of corporations and entities that are financially run groups. Of course, there are people, nefarious people behind these groups, and they have also selfish desires in mind. Here, Mark Passio will explain the deeper truths about money and the one-eye symbolism.
Symbol that needs to be understood. This is a commonly misconstrued symbol. What it ultimately represents is the balanced brain hemispheres combined with the heart. So it's the heart-mind come to full expression. And this is a symbol that is co-opted and perverted and come to be used or identified with the dark occultists. However, that is not what it really represents. What it really represents is light. It represents balance. It represents the light of the Creator, the true Creator. Okay? It represents thought, emotion, and action in unity, non-dual consciousness. Now watch the eye there, up there. Ultimately, that's what it represents. There it is, the human pineal gland in the center of the head, awakened. It is open. It is our one eye, the spiritual vision that only activates and comes online when we become awakened. The dark occult wants to put that light out from the world to build their new world order. This is the world they want to build. They want to finish that pyramid of stone, of block, of bricks, which block us from our true nature. They want to build the world of darkness with no light in it, where they rule from the shadows. And they have all the light in a state of disconnection with everyone else. So this is a dual symbol, and it needs to be understood as such. We need to bring that light to fuller manifestation in the world, to get rid of all the blocks, and to bring that light down so that it joins up with the earth, and we can complete the one true great work of truth, love, and freedom. So that is the all-seeing eye. Let's see some examples of it. The first place, obviously, where that sigil comes from is from the $1 bill. Again, identifying it with unity consciousness. The word money is right before our face every day. Billions of people say this word, and they never have actually simply split it in two. The one eye. Mono and eye. And they're identifying it with the true one eye, and they're giving it to us again in proxy. And we'll look at how the color green is used in connection with money. Okay? This is the most powerful force driving mind control. This is the ultimate form of mind control. This is what people do dark occultist bidding for. It is the most powerful religion of this world. I have often called it the one and only religion. No matter what religion somebody is, they believe in this. It is the most powerful God of this world. It has taken the place of the true God of creation.
All those symbols and sigils on the dollar bill are part of the magic that makes the Federal Reserve notes so central to our daily life. Our every action and decision is dependent on these green notes. How many times have you heard yourself or someone else change their dreams or plans or hopes because of the issue of money? Churches and politicians both rely on money to survive. As you watch this, I suspect you might even be wondering, what would we do without it? In and of itself, a system of money could maybe be just an honest trading system, but that's not what we've got. The best way to understand the Federal Reserve and central banking is to start with G. Edward Griffin in The Creature from Jekyll Island. You can find that in video form or a book form. Otherwise, look into the Federal Reserve and understand that the Federal Reserve is a privately owned entity, not a branch of the government. Likewise, the IRS is not actually a government agency, privately owned business that is closely overlooked by a government agency. Think of a life decision or a choice that would not involve the God of money. Money is, in our society, in modern times, the most powerful God of this world. And believing in it is the most powerful religion of this world. This is what we are all truly bound to. And if you cannot admit it, I would ask you to give this some thought and consider whether what we're saying here is true. One of the hardest things, I suspect, for many folks to look at, honestly, is the problem with cultural religions. Christianity was my background, so I feel comfortable being critical of it. I went to the Sunday school and did the communions, the whole 9 yards. I remember being so incredibly uncomfortable at times in services that I broke out laughing as a child, and my dad dragged me out by my earlobe. What I did not know how to verbalize at the time, when I was young, is that it is comical to try and tell people what to believe, especially using repetition as the principal method. Ritual repetition will never bring a person closer to divinity. The main problem with religions is that stories are psychologically mesmerizing. People are easily fooled in large groups, especially. When some people can so easily derive power and steal the energy and resources of a community using crafty, emotional stories, what defense is in place to stop them, those type of people, from taking charge of religious institutions or being in important positions? The best way to avoid being fooled is a healthy ability to challenge anything or anybody that tries to hinder the progress of your consciousness. Stories make good metaphors and allegories, but must always be seen with a critical eye and used with caution. Children and people that are not familiar with the language of symbols and metaphors can be easily confused. Churches are dangerous because they can make a practice of controlling thoughts at a young age and encouraging herd mentality and dogmatic choices without introspection and dialectic thinking.
religare. All right? Religare means to tie back, to hold back, or to thwart from forward progress by tying or binding. Tying up so that you can't move forward. That's what religare is, and that is the etymological root of religion. Because a false religion is a system of control that is based in unchallenged dogmatic belief which keeps the mind in a prison in order to hold back the progress of consciousness. And that's where the bulk of humanity is at, in a brain cage. They're in the mind cage. Okay? There is a positive connotation of religion. It also means to reunite with. And what we need to reunite ourselves with is the truth and common sense and natural law and a knowledge that there's no such thing as legitimacy to slavery. That's what we need to reunite with. You know? And then we'd be living with true religion. We'd be practicing true religion instead of fake religion.
So let's take it back to the simple basics. Here's how I have redefined morality in my life, which helps with my decision-making process.
Natural law, therefore, is a set of universal, non-man-made, binding, and unchangeable conditions which govern the behavioral consequence of beings with the capacity for holistic intelligence. Natural law governs the aggregate or collective free will behavioral choices of entire populations by manifesting the consequences of the behaviors that we choose. The consequences which we receive are always dependent upon whether our chosen behaviors are either moral or immoral, or in other words, right or wrong.
The green side makes so much more sense when you put it like this. On the left, we have natural law. On the right, man's law. Natural law is based upon principles and truth inherent to creation. Man's law is based on dogmatic beliefs, constructs of mind, things we made up. Natural law can be harmonized with due to knowledge and understanding. Man's law must be complied with due to fear of punishment. Natural law is universal. It exists and applies anywhere in the universe, regardless of location. Man's law differs with location based upon the whim of legislators. And what this is essentially moral relativism. Being ruled by moral relativism. Natural law is eternal and immutable, exists and applies for as long as the universe exists and cannot be changed. Man's law changes with time based upon the whim of legislators. Again, moral relativism. Right and wrong can change depending on who's running the show. Principle versus law. To understand how evil controls people, it is necessary to understand the difference between principle and law. A principle is a truth that creates freedom. A law is a lie that creates slavery. Principles describe reality. They are knowledge that help you to make use of your world. Because of your intelligence, you recognize principles in everything you do. Every true thing you learn is a principle. The movements of your hands, which foods taste good, mathematics, and empathy for a friend are all based on principles. So this is a reminder to keep your thought process, understanding that it is crucial to get back to the root of things to make change. We are so accustomed and trained to be reactive to the current situation and the current drama. We need to take a deep breath and start thinking about the long view plan in terms of what is best for all humans and the planet too, for all life. Of course, it is crucial to be in the moment in terms of your consciousness and your actions. But the philosophy will guide the moment. We can spend more moments understanding how to be in alignment with the philosophy of the all. And then the moment will guide itself. Principles will come first. This is so hard to grasp. It's really amazing how backwards our mental viewpoint is structured and how awkward it is at times. Another thing that's viewed in a backwards way in modern times is the word anarchy. Anarchy is from the Greek prefix an, which means without or the absence of, and the Greek noun archon, which means master or ruler. Anarchy does not mean without rules or chaos. It literally means without rulers or without masters. So a lot of times what we say is no masters, no slaves. You'd think that would be something everyone would want to get behind. But the word anarchy has been given a bad name in the public eye, most likely on purpose. Anarchy is often used incorrectly in modern culture. People use the word synonymously with chaos or madness to mean a lack of respect or order. This is frustrating for the anarchist who understands more than anyone the need for order. Without a system of rulers and obedience, we would all have to be self-disciplined, and we would have to create our own local systems of order to maintain balance and peace. That would require effort and initiative. And the best type of qualities for humans to be practicing would be courtesy and order, and to keep practicing some of the same civil things we do now. Moving towards the extremes of either polarity, of intellect or emotion, can act as a divisive force which holds us back from the true care and right action. We must engage our willpower, at an individual level to unite these polarizing forces. There's always a struggle to find balance in all we do. Like so many other important topics we discussed in this series, a brain balance and higher brain function are not discussed much in traditional school setting. Understanding ourselves and how our brain works can also help us communicate and deal with others and make better decisions. Things like the television, the institutional belief systems, the government, the corporations, and the criminals all want to get your attention so they can sell you something. If your brain is not well seated on a tight leash, it will wander off to some extreme brought on by a strong emotion. In the pictures here, you can see the right and left hemisphere of the brain would be the polar opposites or extremes. And in the top picture, you see the picture where the heart and the brain are being separated. And then in the bottom right, you see the picture where the lower brain is being separate from, in different colors, where the yellow would be the neocortex, the higher brain. So there are lots of ways to be have the brain be fragmented or separated. The idea is to have an integrated approach and to connect the different types of thought, the logical thoughts and the intuitive thoughts, the gut feelings and the analytical planning, putting things in order, the heart caring, and the mind thinking. Using all of these together, we have a powerful machine that has the ability to find truth and communicate truth and discover the answers. Voltaire is known to say, "So long as the people do not care to exercise their freedom, those who wish to tyrannize will do so. For tyrants are active and ardent, and will devote themselves in the name of any number of gods, religious and otherwise, to put shackles upon sleeping men." Our modern society has become lazy. Because there are so many people, one starts to think, "Oh, someone else will take care of it. There's so many others. Surely someone else is more of an authority than myself." So for those of us who've come so far in unraveling this great mystery, let's be confident and start to speak up and speak out. Stand up for your rights.
Ants are not meant to serve grasshoppers. I've seen these ants do great things. And year after year, they somehow manage to pick food for themselves and you. So who is the weaker species? Ants don't serve grasshoppers. It's you who need us. We're a lot stronger than you say we are. And you know it, don't you?
Well, princess.
Hopper, I hate to interrupt, but,
You ants stay back!
The slaves of that ruling class who have some sort of a moral obligation to obey the master class. And we call this authority. You know what I call it? I call it what it really is, slavery. It's called slavery. It always has been slavery, it is slavery now, and it always will be slavery. Let's stop euphemizing things. Let's call bullshit for what it is, okay? There's no inherent legitimacy to the concept of slavery, and never has been, and never will be. And we need to understand that's what that is. Authority is slavery, but we're just euphemizing it and calling it something different. Authority is the belief in the legitimacy of authority is the belief in the legitimacy of slavery. If you believe in authority, you have legitimized the concept of slavery.
Authority. There is no authority on earth that can rightfully govern your life. Born to this world, you and you alone control your eyes, your ears, your tongue, your hands, and your mind. All authority which claims to be able to dispose of you and your abilities is deceit. You were born to this world so that you might have the free agency of life. Life is liberty. With liberty and faith in this world, you can learn and do anything. Anyone who tells you that you must yield your mind, your body, or your possessions to authority is evil. Understand that choices made of your own free will are not evil. There is nothing wrong with sacrifice if it is made willingly. But sacrifice without choice is not sacrifice. It is slavery. Authority always places demands on people by force. Authority never asks permission. Authority is not truth. It's really simple. We just need to remember who's in charge. It's not the people calling themselves authority. It's quite the opposite. If humans begin to see and work towards truth and freedom, and proceed to implement the absolute highest ideals, we will see evil diminish and disappear in this world. Truth is authority.
So I have solved this little political dilemma for myself in a very simple way. On election day, I stay home. I don't vote. I don't vote. Two reasons I don't vote. First of all, it's meaningless. This country was bought and sold and paid for a long time ago. The shit they shuffle around every 4 years doesn't mean a thing. And secondly, I don't vote because I believe if you vote, you have no right to complain. People like to twist that around, I know. They say, well, if you don't vote, you have no right to complain. But where's the logic in that? If you vote, and you elect dishonest, incompetent people, and they get into office and screw everything up, well, you are responsible for what they have done. You caused the problem. You voted them in. You have no right to complain. I, on the other hand, who did not vote, who, in fact, did not even leave the house on election day, am in no way responsible for what these people have done and have every right to complain as loud as I want about the mess you created that I had nothing to do with. So I know that a little later on this year you're going to have another one of those really swell presidential elections that you like so much. You'll enjoy yourselves. It'll be a lot of fun. I'm sure as soon as the election is over, your country will improve immediately.
I pledge allegiance to myself. Food, shelter, and health. Let me find a beach full of seashells to sell. Put your oxygen mask on first before you offer me help. I've got receipts made of scar tissue. Got the vision of somebody going fishing in the dark. When I start up the motor, it still turns over. But nowadays, a little bit slower. Never been afraid of getting older. I'm much more nervous about these public servants. Kill the lights and shut the curtains. You ain't a real lion if you love the circus. Looking at myself like, what's the purpose? That's when I started to hallucinate, trying to touch the surface and recuperate. You should have seen the look on my face when I was losing my faith. Y'all got me feeling hesitation, embarrassment. I might be the last generation of grandparents. I know that I've been fortunate for all the opportunities, disproportionately disappointed in the human beings. I get it, we're specks of dust at the bus stop busking for extra crust. Like fuck it, you can sacrifice me to the weather if you promise that you'll let my songs live forever.